Okay. Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Solomon, are you on the call? If you're on the call, please let me know so that I could know when to start. We have a few people on the call, and I just wanted us to do some what's it called now? Set some. Oh, I just want to do some housewarming. So today we're going to be discussing something very important, which is the interview process. I don't know. Solomon, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mustafa. I was actually speaking to the admin. I just really wanted to know if there needs to be anything I have to do. Um, oh, okay. So I wanted to know how many people that we're expecting to have on the call so that I can know when is the best time to get into the conversation. Mm, Okay, so if you're in the group chat, it's great if you can inform every other person who's supposed to be here. We're supposed to start about 10. And I need to have a hard stop by 12:15. So I need to cover everything I want to discuss with you guys in 2 hours at most. 2 hours and maybe or even less so that I can take more questions because I think questions are more valuable. Like Mustafa Yahaya, you have your hands up. Do you have a question? Mustafa Yahaya, your hands are up. Do you have a question? Okay. So today we're going to be discussing the other leg of the job preparation process. I don't know if you guys were in the last class where we discussed um, CV and cover letter writing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, great. Thank you for confirming. So I'm just trying to, okay, cool. So the CV and cover letters side of our conversation was basically around what you need to do to get yourself um, an interview invitation. An interview invitation. So by now, I want to believe that you guys have taken all of that learnings into consideration, and you have also um, started working on your CV based on the feedback and some of the things that we've learned in the previous class. So maybe in the first two, in the first 5 minutes, I will just give time for anyone who has any question based on the previous class that we had on CV and cover letter writing. So when you started editing or reworking your CV, were there any challenges that you faced throughout the process? So you can use the raise hand function, and that would really help us get to know if you have any question pertaining to the previous class, because the CV and the cover letter side of it is basically to help you prepare so that you're able to land a potential interview opportunity where you're going to validate even further why you are the right fit or the right candidate for the job. All right. So it's very important. This other part of the conversation is important because it creates a balance. So we've taught you how you need to go about getting your foot in the door to land an interview. And now we want to tell you, if you eventually get your foot in the door, how are you going to scale through? How are you going to effectively land that job opportunity? All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we have 21 people on the call, and because of we're pressed for time today, I'm not going to wait for more people to join. So if you're on the group chat, please be kind to reach out to the people in your cohorts and ask them to join that the session has started so that we do not waste any more time trying to go over some of the things that we should go over. Okay. So I'm really excited about these conversations because it's something I've been doing for the longest time. I've been helping people land job opportunities. I've been helping people prepare to land their dream jobs. And I'm very excited to be having this conversation with you today. So the first thing is our outline. Well, the things that we're going to be discussing today. So we're going to get an introduction into what an interview entails. We're also going to look at the overview of interviews, basically everything that you need to know about writing in. I mean, sorry, I'm mixing it up now. So what I mean, everything that you need to know about scaling an interview effectively is what we're going to be discussing today. We're also going to look at the purpose, why our interview is important. And we're looking at this purpose of an interview from the perspective of an interviewer and the perspective of an interviewee, so that both expectations are aligned and we know what both parties are looking out for. We're going to then go into the stages of an interview, some interview deal breakers, interview conduct and tips, interview questions and answers. So some typical questions that you get during an interview and how to go about answering them. And then we're going to have a brief interview simulation. And then I'll take any questions that you have. So why should you even be listening to me here today? You're probably familiar with my profile already because I took you on the previous session. So my name is Praise. I have a couple of qualifications, as you can see. Actually, I think I need to edit this slide. I've actually concluded my MBA program at Quantic School of Business and Technology. I'm a management consultant with Mastercard West Africa, and I'm also a career coach. I run HR, or like I lead HR operations at Stell's Impact Consulting, which is an education consulting firm here in Lagos and Abuja. I am also the executive director of the Student Personal Development Hub. So this is a platform, an NGO I started 5 years ago, where I basically help students, young graduates, um, to prepare for the world of work. I also participate as a scholar interviewer. So I'm on the interview panel for the NHEF as well. And I'm also very passionate about entrepreneurship, business success, human capital development, social impact, and the national and continental transformation. So my objective here today is to get you ready for your next interview and open your eyes to what an interview entails from the perspective of an interviewer. So I've been on the other side of the divide. In fact, I've been on both sides of the divide, and I know what it looks like. So when you get a better perspective, I feel like you're going to be more in tune with landing or succeeding at your interviews. So I'm going to turn off my video a bit so that I can focus on the class. I don't want you to get distracted by my movement and stuff. So please pay attention. But just before we go ahead, please confirm that you can hear me clearly and you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. I can hear you and see your screen very clearly, sir.
Yes, we can hear
Awesome.
you.
Thank you
Yes,
so much, Tochukwu and Amarachi. Thank you for confirming. Okay, so let's get right into the overview of an interview. So when we speak about interview, what exactly are we talking about? Right? An interview based on very known definitions is a formal conversation between two or more people, usually with one person asking questions or a group of people asking questions and the other person providing answers. An interview can be formal or informal. So by informal, you see the word informal is highlighted because people think interview always has to be a formal conversation or you have to wear your suit and tie and go into a room. An interview can also happen in most casual places like a restaurant. It could happen on, like at an outdoor space. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be a formal, um, it doesn't have to be a formal setting before you say, oh, this is an interview, right? A very good example of that is a movie I saw a while back, like Wolf of Wall Street. Someone was just listening to an individual have a conversation at a restaurant, and he overheard the amount of money that person was calling, and then someone just walked up to him. See, if you can tell me what you do and how you go about making this XYZ amount of money, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to join you, to get that kind of money. So the whole point of that story is do not always see interview as a formal conversation all the time. Someone wrote on my screen. I don't know why you guys are writing on my screen. So please do not write on the screen. I'm going to try to stop sharing my screen and reshare so that we can. Joseph, your mic is unmuted. Please mute your mic. Okay. So please let me know if you can see my screen.
So I can see your screen.
Thank you. Okay. So you can see my screen. Let's move ahead.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So an interview is a formal, informal conversation used to assess a person's suitability for a job, an academic program, or other opportunities by evaluating their qualifications, skills, and personality traits. So it doesn't always have to be a job before you get an interview. People get interviews for an MBA program, an academic program. It could be a fellowship that you applied for. Interviews are usually used to just really assess or evaluate your qualifications, skills, personality, and fits for a particular opportunity and not necessarily a job. An interview can take place in many contexts, such as employment, journalism, research, academic admissions, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so hiring managers use interviews to learn more about your background and skills and whether you'll be a good fit for the company. That is also like one of the things that interviews are for. Sorry. And then the next thing we're going to look at is we have various types of job interviews. Um, Interviews can take many formal shapes, and this is what we're going to be looking at now. So an interview could be a one-on-one interview, which can be structured or unstructured. An interview could also take the form of a panel. So there's also something called the panel interview. There's another one called the group interview. Some people also call it the assessment center. There are case interviews, technical interviews, behavioral interviews, task-based interviews, speed or rapid interviews, and so on and so forth. We're going to see in details how these interview types differ from each other. Now, in terms of the modes of interview, an interview can take various modes. An interview can be physical or in person. An interview can be done virtually or online. There's another mode that could be a live video recording. There's also, like another type is called live videos, So there's video recording one where a question pops up on your screen and you have like 3 seconds to start responding to the question. And there's another type called the live video interview where someone is watching you. You have your interview live and they're not there with you in person. So there's also another one called the telephonic interview, which is, basically, putting a call across to you on the phone and having that interview with you. I've experienced that one quite a lot. So those are the various modes of interviews we have. There are other modes, but these are the most common ones you tend to find across the world. So now we're going to look at the types of interviews in detail, so you can begin to see some differences as to like how this interview is different for each other. So the one-on-one interviews, like I said earlier, can be in a structured format or unstructured format. By structured format, it means that there's a standardized and systematic questioning technique that is used where each candidate is assessed using predetermined questions. So everybody gets asked the same questions and you judge them based on their responses to the same questions, right? And the purpose of this type of interview is to allow for a fair and consistent evaluation using a scoring system. So so when you have a predetermined set of questions, you allocate scores to those questions, and based on people's responses, you can either score people a 3, a 2, a 1, and is a very standardized way to ask interview questions. Now, although this type of interview style is very reliable because everyone is judged on the basis of how they've performed, everyone is judged fairly, the same questions, there's no twist to it. It can be rigid and then it's not flexible. And that type of interview do not really let people's personalities, different personalities, shine through. And that's when we talk
Yeah,
about the
right.
unstructured interviews. Someone is talking. Joseph, again, your mic is unmuted. Okay, so we didn't speak about the unstructured interviews, which is the one that is usually informal and open-ended questions are used. Now, this is usually the most practiced type of interviews. I always tell people that human beings are very different. If you use a standardized interview, except maybe in given situations, that might work. But there's some situations where you need to allow the individuality of our humanity shine through because as we are all human beings, as we're different, that's how our lives and our personalities are also different. Someone else's mic is muted. Ibrahim Chado, your mic is unmuted. Matthew David, please, when you join these calls, it's important that you mute your mic so that you stop interrupting the class because that's also taking our time when I have to check who's speaking or who's not speaking. Please check that your mic is not unmuted during these calls. Thank you for your cooperation. So I was speaking about the unstructured interviews, and like I was saying, it is usually informal and open-ended questions are used, allowing for a more flexible exploration of a person's quality and value proposition. The goal is often to delve into the candidate's personality, motivation, and interpersonal skills, allowing a more holistic view of the candidate. The unstructured interview gives you a bit of a holistic view of a candidate. There are no predetermined questions. Questions just flow based on responses to previous questions or what's on the person's CV and all of that. So it gives people an opportunity to shine their personal differences, shine your value during the interview. Now, one of the downsides of an unstructured interview is the fact that the interviewer's judgment plays a significant role. Therefore, human biases can take place in this type of interview, right? Because they're judging you based on how they're perceiving you. They're judging you based on how you're responding to their questions. There's no predetermined question. There's no scoring system. It's just based on how impressed or not impressed that they are about you. And that's when human biases can come into it. So, for example, like I know in some climes, people have, so there's this thing called racism. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. So some people might just have a racist bias, and if maybe a black person is coming to the call, they tend to just shut down or not even give that person a chance at all. The other type of interview type that we have is what we call the behavioral interview. Behavioral interview is used to assess a candidate's past behavior and experiences to enable the HR person or to enable the interviewer predict their future performance. So based on what you've done before, we can now categorically say, oh, you'll be able to do the one that we're interviewing you for. So they're basically trying to assess what you've done before, your previous activities, previous behaviors you've expressed, previous experiences that you've had, um, to assess how you're going to perform in their organization. It also tests for the candidate's personal values, behaviors, mindset, personality, and cultural fit into the organization. Now, for behavioral interviews, we always recommend the STAR technique of answering interview questions. We're going to see this in detail in the rest of the slide, but for now, just keep it in your brain that there's something called the STAR technique of answering interview questions, usually used to answer behavioral interview questions, right? The next type of interview we see is what we call the situational or case interviews. This involves presenting a candidate with hypothetical scenarios or real life situations to assess how they would approach or handle specific challenges, providing insight into the problem solving and decision making skills of the candidate. Okay, so these type of interviews usually used by management consulting firms to assess a person's problem-solving skills. They want to check if you're able to effectively solve a business problem. So they give you a hypothetical scenario. What we mean by hypothetical scenario is that they give you, an example, or let's say you are the manager of this business and this is the problem that this business is facing, or for example, the business is facing profitability issues. How would you handle it? That is usually what we call the case interview, where they give you a typical scenario that they would have handled and use that to test if you succeed in the role or not, right? So the case interview basically gives you an example or gives you an experience of what you typically face in that role, and it's mostly used by management consulting firms like the McKinseys, the BCGs, the Bains, and all of that. The other one is the technical interview. So basically, this type of interview is only done to assess a candidate's specific skill, knowledge, or abilities, right? It is related to the technical requirement of the job. So, for example, if they're hiring for a software engineer, some companies would not be satisfied to have an unstructured interview style with them or behavioral interview style with them alone. They would always have to accompany it with a technical interview style where they are also testing the technical abilities of the person, because that role is a technical role and requires someone who can do the job. The fact that you can communicate and speak effectively is not the only determinant of your success in that role. So most likely they give you a coding test, or if it's a data analysis job, they can give you an entire data file to clean it, clean the data, do everything that you need to do in the data and present it to them. So that's really what we call the technical interviews. And then finally, there's the group interviews. This one is usually used by very large firms like the KPMGs, the PwCs, and those big organizations. They use assessment center because they can use it to assess multiple people at the same time. They would not have all the time in the world to do a one-on-one interview at the initial stages. So many times when you apply for companies like KPMG and PwC, or also all of these large organizations that have a number of people applying to them and they need to hire a lot of people, you tend to see that they will schedule you for an assessment center where you come in groups. They will put you in groups, give you team assignments to do. You'll do presentations, a lot of activities that are usually planned out to just really test certain skills, like maybe how well you're performing within a team. Are you a shy person? Are you outspoken? How do you present yourself? Do you have the right attitude to work? Do you present as a professional? All of those things is what they're looking out for. So they're, basically going to be doing that in the group interview. Now, it's also important I mentioned that an interview session might have a culmination of all of these various types of interviews. So it doesn't necessarily have to be only one type. An interview can involve you answering it can be very much unstructured. There are going to be behavioral interview questions inside. There are going to be technical interview questions inside. So it can be a mix and match of all of these ones we've discussed. But now that you know the various elements, you understand what is expected of you. The next thing we're going to look out for is the purpose of an interview. Now, we're looking at the purpose of an interview from the perspective of the interviewer and the perspective of the interviewee. Why is interview even important? Why do you go for an interview? Why can't they just read your CV and say, oh, you are qualified and give you the job? What are we looking out for when it comes to an interview? From the perspective of the interviewer, the person who's actually going to be asking you all the questions, they want to assess your cultural fit. Are you a fit for their organization? You remember when we talk about the fact that you need to understand the culture of the organization that you're applying for a job, and that would also inform the kind of your perspective of that company. So, for example, for example, is if you're applying for a role in Google, you would know that wearing a suit for a Google interview would communicate to them that you do not understand the company's culture, right? So every company has a culture that governs them. There's a way they behave in that company. Some companies, for example, will tell you that you do not call people within the organization sir or ma. You need to speak to them or call them by their first name. That is a company that is shaping the culture of open communication and breaking the boundaries of hierarchy. Because many times the African culture sort of like creates this hierarchy where people call people sir or ma, and then you're all up there. But when you're in a company where everybody calls everybody by their first name, even if you're 50 years old, I call you by your first name, it just really creates a different environment for you when you work. So some companies have taken the time to create those kind of cultures for themselves. Google, for example, people wear sneakers to the office. It's not a typical kind of work where you have to wear suit and tie, as compared to a bank, for example, where you need to be on your full corporate regalia. You can't be working in a bank and wearing a t-shirt and a sneakers. That's not someone who understands the culture. So every company has a culture. That is what they're trying to also assess. Are you a good fit for our company? Do you have what it takes to function effectively in this company? Because if you do not, you're going to struggle when you join them. Another thing they look out for is they want to gauge your interest in the role and the company itself. They want to be sure that you're not just making a generic application, that you're intentional about applying to them. They also want to assess your skill and your experience to deliver on the role. They want to validate the impression that they already have about you. So you've submitted your CV and cover letter, and they're so impressed and they invite you for an interview. What they're trying to do is they want to validate if all the things you said on your CV, all of the things that you present as a candidate is who you truly are. So they're validating the impression that you've already made on them. Another goal for the interviewer is to assess your goal alignment they want to assess the goal alignment of the candidate expectation with the company's objective for the role. So they want to assess your alignment. So for example, if you're a candidate and you know that you want a hybrid work style, for example, the interview is also going to help them determine if your expectation for the company is in alignment with what the objective of that role is. All right. So that's also part of the things that they want to look out for. Something else that they want to um look out for again is they want to also assess your personality, your values, and your work ethics, right? They want to be sure that you're someone who fits, is still in line with the cultural fit in this case. They want to be sure that all of these things are in check. They want to assess your confidence level and communication skills. So you might have written, so some people have people write their CVs for them. That's one thing I always advise against. I always advise people, write your CV by yourself so that when they call you up tomorrow, if they ask you anything on that CV, you'll be able to defend yourself. All right. Some people will they'll pay money for someone to write CV for them, and then that CV would impress the HR person, the person who's reviewing the application, like, oh my God, this person is great. and then they invite that person for an interview, and the person cannot even introduce themselves. So how did you write a very amazing CV and cover letter, but you cannot even communicate effectively when you're asked a question? All of these things is what they're looking out for. And then finally, to also discuss any concerns or clarify any ambiguity that they have identified in your application is also part of the things that they're looking out for. From the perspective of the interviewee, that is you, people, the person who is applying for the job, what are you looking out for when you go for an interview? Your purpose in this sense is that you want to learn more about the role and the company. Like I always say, an interview is a two-way street. As they are interviewing you, you're also interviewing the company to know if it's a good fit for you, to know if you would function effectively in that company. You want to understand their culture. Or you know now as a young person, you don't want to be going to work every day. You want a hybrid style of work, or you want a remote style of work. All of these things, what you also want to go into that interview trying to confirm, to ensure that you're aligned with it. Another reason why you would want to go for an interview is you also want to tell your story. The CV might not be as convincing as it should be, but you want an opportunity to even give them more context as to why you're the right person for the job. You want to discuss your experience, showcase your skill, and outline your value proposition to the prospective employer. You also want to convince the interviewer that you're the best person for the role. That's also why you're going for that interview, because there are multiple people who are applying for that role as much as you're applying, but you need to go there and tell your story, convince them that you're the best person for that job. You also want to clarify any ambiguity or gaps in your application. So, for example, a lot of HR people have questions when it comes to, um, you know, gaps in people's application. So, for example, there was a gap within your job. So, by gap, we mean maybe you finished school in 2020 and you've gone for, and I mean, technically, there's a way we usually assess how people's career would have gone ahead. So let's say you started working in 2021 and then you worked from 2021 to 2022 January. And then the next experience I'm seeing on your CV is January 2024. I would want to know what you were doing from February 2023 to when you now got this new job. Are you taking a course? What happened? Where is that gap? Why is there a gap in your career trajectory? That is also part of the things you also want to come and clarify. You know how we say that the HR is interested in any concern. So that concern might be that gap, and you are coming to clarify that gap just in case they have it as a concern for them. You also want to connect with the recruiter. Now, in bracket, I put here possible referral. Some things that happen in the HR space or in the work environment really is, let's say you come for an interview and you're interviewing, and maybe there's a stronger candidate than you. But just because you have made an impression on that HR manager or in the interviewer's perspective, I've seen how organizations create new roles for people, even though those roles do not exist, simply because this person did a good job at the interview. So let's say that they're looking for someone who is a bit more experienced than you, and you apply, and because of how strong your application was, they invited you for that interview. And then you come on the interview and you surprise them, right? Let's say that there's someone who is even more experienced than you. The company can decide to hire the both of you. You will just be like an assistant to the person. Or let's even say there's another role that they are recruiting for that you have not applied for. But because of how much you have impressed them at the interview, they will then refer you for that other job opportunity that you did not even know existed. So it's very important that you connect with your recruiter during the interview process. And then finally, one of the goals that you are there for is also to land the job. All right. Everybody wants to get the job opportunity and land it. So that's also the purpose why you're there for that interview. Now let's go into the stages of an interview. What are the stages of an interview that we have? Primarily, there are three stages. There's the pre-interview stage, during the interview, and then finally the post-interview stage. For the pre-interview stage, it is essential that this stage is done properly, to give you a smooth interview experience. By completing some key activities such as researching, you see some of the things that you're typically supposed to do in the pre-interview stage as we go forward. You need to get them right, because if you get them right, you're going to succeed in the next stage, which is the interview stage. And then finally, on the pre-interview, success. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard this. People say this a lot. Success happens when preparation meets opportunity, right? You need to be prepared for an opportunity before it comes your way. And it's important we pay attention to that. During the interview, This stage, your success at this stage is dependent on the strength of the previous stage. You know how I mentioned it? If you do a good work in the pre-interview stage, the interview stage is going to be a walkover. It is technically the impression management stage. What do we mean by impression management? This is where you're going to now sell your market. This is where you're going to, do all the hard work. So it is a very critical stage and you need to be prepared for it. This stage of the interview carries the weight of a hiring decision. This is where they eventually will make a hiring decision, right? And then there's little or no room for do-overs in the interview stage. So you need to get it right. For the post-interview stage, it can change the dynamics for a lot of people. A lot of people often ignore the post-interview stage, but I know a lot of people that the post by taking steps of at the post-interview stage has really shifted the narrative for them. Maybe their application got lost in the way, and just because of they have engaged in the post-interview stage activities, their application was then reconsidered. Like I said here, the stage is essential to stay top of mind and potentially stand out to your prospective employer or opportunity sponsor. Your action in this stage can positively impact the outcome of the previous stage, and it is often overlooked and paid less attention to. Hence, it can be a differentiator for you if you pay attention to it. Now, let's get right into the key activities within the pre-interview stage. So, how I've structured this, there are primarily four key activities that we're going to pay attention to in the pre-interview stage. And I want you guys to pay attention very keenly to all of the things we're going to discuss. If you have not been taking notes before, this is a time for you to get your notepads and begin to write. The first thing you want to do in the pre-interview stage is research. Now, this is a no-brainer. You cannot impress at an interview if you have not done your homework. You need to do your homework. What are the things that you need to do when it comes to research? You need to learn about the company. You need to learn who their customers or clients are. Who are they solving a problem for? Who are they serving? Because if you know who their customers are, it gives you a bit of more context as to how to structure your story when you're in the interview room. You need to understand what is the company value. A lot of times I've heard a couple of people go to interview and tell me, oh, they asked me what are our values and I did not know all of them. And I keep wondering, what then did you go to that interview to do? If you cannot do the basic thing of even researching the organization, it's like saying you want to go on a date and you don't know the name of the person or you don't know who the person is. Why are you going for that date if you don't know the person? You cannot go and tell a company that you want to work for them when you don't even know about them. It's going to work against you. So it's very important that you do your research. Know, learn about the company. What do they do? Where are they located? Who are their customers? What kind of solution are they providing? You know, what are the things that this company is about? What are their values, right? What is the latest news about this company? What what department, who are you even going to be working with? What department are you going to fall under by virtue of your role? You can also take it a bit further and research what is the industry salary range for this particular role that I'm recruiting for. All of these details can really elevate your interview game a lot. Another thing to pay attention to is if you're privy to the information of your interviewer. So many companies, sometimes they would put the people who are going to be on your interview in CC. I don't know if you know what CC means. So when you go to an email, there's the recipient's address, there is your address, and then there's CC and BCC. CC is carbon copy as per what it means directly. So what that means is if you want someone to be in the loop of the communication, you would include them in CC. But then if you want to copy somebody and keep them in the loop of the information, but you do not want the other recipients to know that these people are in copy, they put you in BCC, which is blind carbon copy. You can do more research about like email. I'm not discussing email system in this class. What I'm telling you about is how to scale and win in your interview. So if you're privy to the information of your interviewer, you need to research them too. I do that a lot. So if I see people So if I get like an email from the HR, or you've been scheduled for an interview, whatnot, and I see in CC that some people within that organization have been copied, the first thing I do is I go on LinkedIn and I check them out. Who are these people? It could also be that maybe you went to the same school with them, and that can play to your advantage. There's a way to communicate it. Oh, so for example, you're in an interview and then someone is asking a question and you say, oh, I studied at the University of Nigeria. I'm aware that you are also an alumni of my institution. That can make the person pay more attention to you than they would have ordinarily done. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's typically how people take research and use it to their own advantage. It might be that that person had worked in a previous company that you worked before, and that can be a way for you to initiate a conversation that makes you stand out in their mind, so that when they see you on that call, there's this person, it was somebody that worked with me before, or in the same company I worked at before, or we went to the same school, and that way you remain top of mind for them. You need to also read the job description thoroughly. So if there was a job description where that role has been advertised, you need to read it very well and start to think about how you can add value to the organization. Because what a job description really is a company telling you what their pain point is. They're telling you what their problem is, and this is what we want somebody to come and help us do. That is the simple definition of what a job description is. A job description is simply the company telling you, this is the problem we have, oh, we need you to come and help us solve it. So you need to start thinking about how can you begin to add value already, based on the information you already have. So if they say, oh, we're looking for someone to handle our sales pipeline, and you know that you have done something around sales pipeline, it will help you structure your response in that interview in a way that you're already telling them that you can solve their problem even before they ask you. In your introduction, you can say, oh, I worked at XYZ company where I literally led, the development of their sales pipeline. You're already answering their question, you're already telling them that I am the right person for you. I have seen your problem and I'm here to solve it for you. That is what the research does for you. That's the power of research in the pre-interview stage. If you know someone who works in that company or has been through that process before, it's also important that you also reach out to them. They can provide you with some tips and guidelines that you ordinarily would not have access to. They might tell you some of the likely interview questions that you might face, which can significantly help you prepare even more and help you land the job better, because you already practice your responses to those questions. One of the things that throw people off guard a lot in interviews, when they ask you questions that you don't have answers to or you're not familiar with, it really throws people off balance. So imagine speaking to somebody who has been through that process before and they tell you, see, these are the kind of questions they're going to ask you, and you already did your homework and you prepared. When you come to that interview, you will look like you are made for that role, because you'll be giving them all the answers that that they need to receive. The next element is planning for your interview. In the pre-interview stage, it's very important that you plan for your interview. You need to find all that you need to know about the interview, like the mode of the interview. One thing that happened one time, someone was scheduled for an interview, was an online interview, but they did not pay attention to the detail of that email. And on the day of the interview, they entered bus and they were on their way to the office. On their way there was when the person realized that the interview was online, and you're already outside, no preparation for you to even stay somewhere, and it was very chaotic for that person. Imagine showing up to the company and maybe that day was a work from home day at the office, and you go there and there's nobody there. What does this say about your attention to detail? What does this say about you as a prospective candidate? It shows that you are not ready for that job opportunity. So you need to know all that you need to know about an interview. Find out what is the mode of the interview. What is the interview type? Like we already spoke about, what's the type of the interview? Is it going to be a group interview? Is it going to be a one-on-one? Is it going to be a technical interview? You need to know. What is the length of the interview? By length of the interview, you should be able to know the severity of an interview. If an interview is 15 minutes, you know that it's just a casual conversation. But if an interview is a 45 minutes interview, you know that you need to really do your homework, because they're going to ask you a lot of questions. Okay. What is the time of the interview? If it's an international organization, check for time zone difference. you need to ensure that everything that you need to get right is already been done. Check for the venue. If it's a physical interview, you need to search Google Maps for the address. Is this something that is close? How many minutes do you need to get there? What time do you leave your house? All of these things are very important. Plan for your interview. If there are any disability adjustments, for example, some organizations make considerations for disabilities, like some people who has like dyslexia, uh, or the dyslexia. I don't know how they pronounce that thing now. It's a very confusing word. Or maybe say you're someone with a disability, maybe you cannot come to the office because of, you have some health issues. All of those things, some companies take into considerations those differences and they make plans around it. So if you have any disability that will prevent you from doing the interview in the proper way that they would expect you, it's better you communicate it to your prospective employer so that they are aware. And then also check for what you need to bring along. So if you need to bring along your CV and certificate and ID, it's very important that you go along with it at the interview. Don't go and forget, because one of the things that happen, I've seen this thing, people even use it for skit a lot. You come for an interview and you don't have your CV. Just imagine coming to the heart of Victoria Island for an interview and you need to present your CV to the prospective interviewer. I mean, now the world has gone digital. People have their CVs on their phones and their laptops. But what if the company's culture is using a physical interview for their interviews and they will need to write on your CV? Maybe that's their culture, maybe that's their process. And then you now come for the interview and expecting that they already had you expect that they already had your interview and like your CV on their system. What if they don't have system? What if it's computers that they work with and they need to come into an interview room where there's no screen? How then would they ask you questions? So you need to ensure that all of the things that you need to come along with you or with them. If it's a physical interview, plan your journey properly. You know, if it's a virtual interview, conduct a tech check. Is your internet working? How do you sit? Now, one advice I give people is if you're having a virtual interview, it is very important that you face, if you do not have a ring light, it's better you face the light coming from outside. So if you have a window, it's better to sit facing the window than sit backing the window, because if you back the window, the light from the window can make your face look dark. You want to be in an interview where your face is showing, and they're not struggling to see your physical expressions, because all those things is important in an interview. So sit facing the window so that the natural light from outside can shine on your face and really help like make your video more impressive. All right. So sit facing the windows. Um, Use a physical interview. Like I said, check Google Map, know how long it's going to take you to get there and plan accordingly. In terms of planning for interview, you also need to decide what to wear. If you have done your research, you would know the culture of the company and you'll be able to tell what the appropriate outfit for your interview should be like. So if it's going to be business formal, business casual, depending on the company's culture, it's very important you pay attention to it. If you're going for a bank interview, you know that you need to be on business formal. But if maybe you're going for an interview at, say, Google or Microsoft or MasterCard, you need to know that, oh, these companies are technology companies. They really do not care about you wearing formal outfit. You can go with your jean and polo and sneakers for an interview and you will be doing it right. So you need to pay attention to all of this detail. Practice, practice, practice is my third key activity in the pre-interview stage. You need to make conscious effort to practice answering common interview questions to yourself, in the mirror, to your friends, to your family. This will significantly boost your confidence. It's very important you practice common interview questions. You need to do role play. So that brings us to the next point. There's something called role play, where you call your friend and say, see, you are going to be the interviewer, I'm going to be the interviewee. Ask me questions and give me feedback on how I'm performing. A lot of people underplay the importance of practicing interview questions before the interviews, because to be honest, like I said before, one of the things that throw people off balance in an interview is when they are faced with an unfamiliar question and they start mumbling and fumbling. All right. So it's very important that you do role plays, you practice your responses. Very common interview questions include things like, tell me about yourself. You need to have had, now you, by practicing, you don't want to sound robotic, but what practice does for you, it helps you keep a structure in your mind when you're being asked a question, you know how you're going to, answer those questions. All right. So it's very important that you practice, very, very important. Practice answering common interview questions, practice with your friends, practice with family, your brothers, your sisters, practice with them. Don't be shy about it, because if you need to go to war, you need to prepare your tools. All right. The final thing I want to also speak about is your mindset. Now, it's very important that your mind is in the right place, when you're preparing and when you're planning to go for an interview. Because, see, one of the other things, when you ask people who are going for interviews, what's the greatest things or the greatest challenge you have with interviews, they'll tell you that it's the nerves. There's usually this natural response of nervousness when there's a conversation around interview, right? Because you know that you're going for scrutiny, you're going for assessments. It's a very natural thing to feel some form of pressure, all right? It's a very natural thing to feel the nerves. So, like I said here, the nerves will kick in. It's totally normal. However, do not let it affect your performance. So there are some practice techniques you can use to keep you in your zen. So there's something called zen. I don't know if you guys have seen Avatar. You know how it goes into the Avatar state. He needs to sort of like, you know, be in his zen mode. You need to be in a state of calm, right? That really, really, really helps you stay in control of things. So there's the deep breath technique where you need to take a deep. So this can also be done on the day of the interview. So when you come in and you're feeling that nervousness, you can practice some of these techniques, and they can just really help you calm your mind, calm your nerves, and put you in the right mind frame for you to succeed at the interview. Because, to be very honest, if you're not calm in your mind, if your mind is a bit joggled up, the tendency for you to fumble at that interview rises up by 50%. All right. So it's very important that you get your mindset right. You're in the most comfortable place in your mind as possible. So there's the deep breath technique where you take in breath for 5 seconds. So you hold it in for 5 seconds, hold in that breath, and then you release it with 5 seconds. So you can call it the 555, the 5 second technique, right? Where you take in breath, hold it in for 5 seconds, and then let it out. What that does, it slows down your heartbeat. When you're going for an interview, your heart start pounding, boom, 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 boom. That's what can make you get really jittery. Some people even start to shake, right? You don't want to make them know that you're nervous. Nervousness is cool. What happens is, how do you handle it? Nervousness is natural, I mean to say, but what happens is how you manage the entire thing. So you need to practice staying calm. Some people, self-affirmations work for them. They go into the room and say, "Oh, you got this. This interview is not the end of your life." And they speak to themselves. They affirm themselves that they are made for the job. They are qualified for the job. They reassure themselves, and that really just helps put them in the best mind frame, right, to succeed at the interview. So do everything in your capacity to stay calm is very important. And one thing I always say is, picture the worst case scenario. What is the worst thing that will happen is that you're not going to get that job, right? If you picture the worst case scenario and you bring your mind to get comfortable with it, trust me, that whole nervousness is going to die down. It's because of the uncertainty of the outcome of the interview that a lot of people tend to have that nervousness and, oh, what will happen? Oh, will I get the job? I hope I don't fumble. Just think about the worst case scenario. I'll not get the job. I'm not going to die. It's not the end of the world. Better opportunities are going to come for me. You just naturally see yourself getting to that place of peace and calm. And it really helps you, because when you're calm in an interview, it really just helps you communicate better. You're more comfortable. You're speaking with eloquence. You're speaking with calmness. People will even, you know, vibe to your aura because you're calm. Because the HR people or the interviewer are usually used to people being nervous and nervous. Sometimes, if the HR person is not a very calm person, they just start firing you questions, and before you know it, you just get stuck. But some HR people can also be very helpful when they see that a candidate is a bit nervous. They try to, do small talks with you. They tell you to take water, relax. But don't give them the opportunity to tell you to do that. Do it yourself. And that will bring me to the end of all of the activities you need to pay attention to in the pre-interview stage. Now let's go over to some things that, okay, so it's also important that I show you in pictures what we mean when we say business formal, business casual in terms of outfit. So planning your interview, dress code is very important. So when we speak about the business formal for guys, we're speaking about the full suit regalia, with your suit jacket, your suit pants, it's very advisable to keep your suit color to be um, these very dark colors, navy blue, gray, or black, because you don't want to get distracted by your outfit. All right, you don't want to go to an interview wearing a pink suit or a red suit or a green suit. It's too shouty. Business color, usually your navy blue, gray, or black suit. Your dress shirt, you mostly advise it to be white or sky blue. It really keeps it very professional. You go in with your tie. If you have a pocket filler, that's great. You're wearing your socks, your black dress shoes or brown shoes. Remember that if you're wearing a brown shoe, your belt has to be brown, right? That's usually how it works. You don't want to wear a black shoe and a brown belt. You're going to look funny. So if you're going to wear a black shoe, wear a black belt. If you're going to wear a brown shoe, wear a brown belt. I hope the guys are taking note of this. When it comes to business casual, we're speaking about, you can wear your chinos, your sneakers, or your very casual shoe and a shirt, and you're good. You can wear it with a t-shirt, you can wear it with a jacket, something not too extraordinary. So it just looks smart. That is what we call business casual. For the ladies, pretty much the same thing. I feel like ladies have a bit more flexibility when it comes to outfits. So, you can, for the ladies, you can go with your suits trouser or suits skirts and your suit jacket with your heels. For business formal, it's very important that you wear your heels. You can't wear flat shoe when you're talking about business casual. I mean, when you're speaking about wearing proper business formal outfit, you're supposed to be on your heels for ladies, right? If you're going to wear a gown, you have to do with a suit jacket as well, or like all of this fancy like corporate jacket that ladies have nowadays for the business formal. In terms of business casual, then you can be a bit more flexible dressing down. So you can wear your flat shoes, you can wear your heels if you want to. You can just go with a top and a skirt, and that's all that you need to wear, or just wear your gown, whatever works for you. Just not too much, um, you know. So I hope this gives you a pictorial representation of what we're talking about. Now let's move on to during the interview stage, and this is also a very important part of the entire activity. So for this stage, there are three key activities that we're looking at. So first of all is being punctual. You should aim to arrive at the interview at least 10 minutes. If it's a physical interview, you should be there 10 minutes before the time. If it's a virtual interview, it's very important that you be on time as well. Join the link 5 minutes to the scheduled interview time. Please, before I go ahead, I want to be sure that you guys can hear me. Can you confirm that you have been hearing or following all I've been, discussing so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir, I can hear you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Clear.
All right.
we are new.
Okay, thank you so much for confirming. So let's move on to the
Mr. Praise, you're welcome.
Thank you. Please just mute our mic so we don't get distracted. So we do not distract the class. Okay. So now, what is the next stage? Is during the interview stage. Now, what this means, there are three key activities here. I already mentioned being punctual. So, like I was saying, if it's a physical interview, you need to be there at least 10 minutes to the time of the interview. If it's a virtual interview, click on the link to join the meeting at least 5 minutes to the time of the interview. This way, you just really communicate your punctuality, your presence, your interest in the role, and your enthusiasm for that job. So it's always important that you're there on time. If you're delayed, kindly contact your employer as soon as possible to explain, apologize, and arrange for another appointment, maybe asking for rescheduling, right? And that's also very fine. A lot of people are always afraid to reschedule interviews because you've already impressed them enough for them to invite you for an interview. Sometimes it get really tricky because some organizations might not have the time to, reschedule interviews as they should. But it's better to communicate and they tell you, oh, we cannot reschedule than for you to just assume that they are not going to reschedule. So if it's uncomfortable for various reasons, people can fall ill, People can have emergencies. Always inform your prospective employer ahead of time, asking for rescheduling, and give a concrete reason why you're asking for that rescheduling. All right. The other point to note is you can engage. So when you come on time, you can also engage, if it's a physical interviewing in this case, you can also engage with other applicants and build relationships and build your network. Some of the friends I have today are people who I met during the job application process, people I met during application. And the thing with this kind of friends is that you already know that they are doing something right if they are being invited for an interview. So imagine having people who are doing something right being your friends. When there's the next job opportunity, they're going to send it to you because you guys are on the journey together. So like it can also really help calm your nerves when you see people, you can chat with them, you guys can talk about your application and make lifelong friendships for them. But then a lot of people are different. Like I keep saying, humanity is quite diverse in its expression. We're really different people. We have different personalities. Some people don't like to be chatty before an interview. It makes them nervous. So if chatting makes you nervous or makes you anxious, I'd advise you just maybe stay in your Zen mode, isolate yourself. You can play music, but don't be rude. If people speak to you, always respond. Don't be rude as, oh, please don't talk to me. You always want to, ensure that you do what works for you. Being punctual creates a good impression on your prospective employer interviewer that you're ready for the job, you're excited about it, and you're enthusiastic. The other thing I wanted to mention here is go get them. I tagged that go get them because what I want to speak about is some of the things that you need to pay attention to. So the first thing is staying calm. I keep re-emphasizing the importance of staying calm because staying calm really just helps you. I mean, you're even going to think better if you're calm. You're going to think about your responses better if you're calm. So stay calm and smile. Smiling really just helps people, feel more comfortable with you. You know, if you walk into the room, it's always important that you give a firm handshake. All right. So many times, so this can also be very tricky because some people might not want to shake your hand. So many people might not want to shake your hand. So, I mean, just read the room. So when you walk in, you can stretch your hand to shake the prospective interviewer. Oh, hi, good morning. It communicates confidence, right? When you bring out your hand and you want to, it's a formal thing to have a handshake. So if you go into a room, you can stretch up your hand to the interviewer. Oh, hi, good morning, and introduce yourself. Give them a very firm handshake. That really communicates that you're confident, that you know what you're there for, and you're not someone who is cowed by the idea of an interview, right? Those are that's the first point I would like to note. The second thing is listen attentively and think before you respond to a question. Now, this one, I cannot overemphasize its importance because a lot of people fumble in interviews because they were not listening, because they were so nervous, they did not listen to the question, they did not think about the question, they just go right into answering. And many times they start to blab and fumble and answer the wrong things. So it's always important when you're in an interview that you're paying close attention to the question. And it's okay if you do not understand a question when it's being asked the first time. You can politely just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did not I do not understand the question. Is it okay if you can rephrase the question?" Or I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly. Do you mind repeating or recapping the question? Very politely. Nobody is going to take away marks for you just because you did not understand the question. A lot of Nigerians and Africans are usually afraid many times to ask their interviewers to repeat themselves. See, I keep saying the fact that you even got an interview invitation is is a testament to the fact that they're already impressed with you. They want you because they need you to come and solve a problem for them. And that is why they put out that call for application. So that whole mentality of being afraid in an interview, many times it's not even necessary. It's not. So if you do not understand a question that you're being asked, you can politely ask, "Oh, I'm sorry, I do not understand the question. Is it okay if you can repeat or rephrase the question to help my understanding?" That is completely okay. it will, because it will save you time and save the interviewers time when you answer the right question. Okay? So it's always important that you ask for clarifications if you do not understand. So the next thing is know your onion. I keep saying this, is very important that when you're going for an interview that you know what you're going to go and do there. You don't want to go to an interview and you don't even know the length and breadth of the job. You have not done your research. You have not read the job description. You have not read your CV. You didn't write your CV yourself. You did not do your homework and prepare. Why they are calling you for that interview, they want to know if you can do the job, if you're the if you're the right fit for them. Ensure that you know what you say you know. Ensure that you know what you say you know. An interview is a two-way street. Like I said, as they are interviewing you, you are also interviewing them. As they are interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. So it's a two-way street. Ask thoughtful questions. A lot of people, I've experienced this a lot when I interview some candidates and I ask them, "Oh, do you have any questions for us?" And they tell you, "Oh, no, I don't have any question." What that communicates to me as a recruiter or as an interviewer is that you do not have interest in that role. You do not have interest in my company. You do not even care that you're just doing the interview because of we invited you over. But asking thoughtful questions communicates to me that you're interested. It communicates to me that you're someone who has done your homework. You know how I keep saying that the pre-interview stage is very critical for your success in the interview stage, because if you have done adequate research, the kind of questions you will ask them, the kind of engagement you will get from some of the responses to their questions will make you stay top of mind. You would significantly make an impression in their minds that they would not forget you in a jiffy. So you need to have done your research. That is only when you can ask thoughtful questions. So let's say you went to the company's website and you saw that they recently just raised funds, or maybe there's something in the news about the company launching a new product. Just imagine coming to an interview and asking the interview, "Oh, I saw on the website that you guys launched this particular product. What exactly is the overall goal or the objective of the?" Sorry, I got a bit distracted. So, what is the goal of that, like particular product? Or you can just really ask them something about the product that you do not understand. That can just really elevate your talent appeal to your prospective employer or recruiter, because it's showing that you're showing. Do not go to an interview and they ask you, "Do you have any questions for us?" and you say no. It's a significant blunt that you cannot afford that mistake. You always have a question. If you do not have a question about the company, you would have a question about the role. If you do not have a question about the role, you have a question about the company's details. You need to have prepared thoughtful questions to ask during an interview. Another thing is, don't argue with your interviewer. You can engage them, but do not argue, because you don't want a situation where these human beings that you're dealing with, you don't want a situation where someone is already cutting you off just because you challenge the idea. Wait till you get into the organization, then you can challenge them further. Speak calmly and pace yourself. You see how the word calmly keeps showing up over and over again. It is very important for you to stay calm in an interview. That is usually the trick. Your interviewer will even be shocked at how calm you are. It will make them want to even, know what you're about. Who is this person? Just they calm, just they talk. That aura of calmness gives you a different feel as a candidate. You're not going there shaking because of what? You're calm, you're speaking confidently, you're speaking with a lot of, you know, calmness. That really just elevates your appeal. I keep saying this. You don't have to rush through an interview question. When they ask you a question, take your time to answer. There's a reason why time is allotted for that interview. You don't have to just rush through it like, "Oh, because of your people do that because many times they are trying to mask their nervousness by rushing through the question. Nobody has heard anything you said. Do not rush through your answers. Respond calmly and pace yourself while you speak. Instead of saying, how about you leverage using pauses? Now, people are usually afraid of pauses when they speak because they do not like the awkward silence. But if I tell you the impact of pauses when you speak, you would be marveled. I just did a practice for you. Imagine speaking and then you take a pause. What it does is it's sort of like if people were distracted before, they would want to hear the next thing you want to say. So just imagine a situation where I'm speaking, I'm introducing myself, or I'm answering an interview question and I'm saying something like, okay, as per my engagement in my previous role, I was able to effectively achieve 20% of our marketing objective within 6 months. Because of this, imagine speaking like that as opposed to saying, while I was there, that and just filler words take away from your confidence as a person when you're speaking. Now, this is not a public speaking class. I can take you an entire expose on public speaking, but that's not why I'm here. What I'm talking to you about is about speaking calmly and pacing yourself when you're answering interview question. It's very important. You don't even sound robotic. Answering fast, fast. Oh, you begin to sound robotic and rehearsed. But then speaking calmly and speaking and pacing yourself as you speak, just communicate. It makes them feel like you're thinking about what you're saying. All right. Final thing, do not use slangs. One thing that caught my attention was when I was interviewing a candidate for a role, and I asked him a question, and then he said something about, "Oh, we go run am," and I'm like, "You said, sorry." He said, "What?" He said, "I mean that we're going to do it." I'm like, first of all, that was already a red flag. Why are you speaking? This is, uh, I don't know how to emphasize this. Please do not use slangs and colloquialisms when you're in an interview room. It really just takes away from your confidence, takes away from your credibility. So it's important that you always maintain a professional tone when you're speaking. I know we said an interview can be informal. Even though it's informal, you don't want to sound like a tout. You also want to speak like someone that has sense. Which one is we go run am? If you're speaking to your friend, then that works. But if you're in an interview situation, you always want to speak calmly, except that interview is being delivered in pidgin English, which I don't even know is common. Final thing is around posturing in an interview. So one thing to notice is you need to sit upright and look at the interviewers in the eyes. A lot of people like to pace around, they like to look around the room instead of looking at the person who they're speaking to because of the same thing around nervousness. A lot of people feel very shy looking to the eyes of the person. So the eyes is the gateway to the soul of a human. So looking at somebody in the eye and talking to them catches their attention. It makes them feel like you're talking to them directly as opposed to looking up to the ceiling or looking to the side of the room or looking at the table. Look at the person, eyeball to eyeball. I hope that makes sense. If it's a virtual setting where you don't tend to see the person physically, instead of staring at your screen, look at the camera. That way, your the person seeing you from their screen feels like you're talking to them because you're staring at the camera and you're not staring at the screen. That is one tip. If you have not taken anything today, take it from me. If you're doing a virtual interview, always stare at the camera and not on your screen. Because if you're looking at the screen, it looks like your eyes is going downwards. The person seeing you does not feel, they will even feel like you're reading something as opposed to talking to them. So always look at the camera instead. Do not get too comfortable in an interview, else you lose your composure. Some interviewers can be very friendly, jovial. You now feel like is your best friend that you're talking to. You just start laughing, ha, 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 and start behaving like a mad person. So please do not lose your steez. Permit me to use that French. Don't get too comfortable, else you lose your composure. In a virtual setting, ensure your interviewer can see you clearly. Like I said, if you're sitting in an interview room, please give me a second, guys. I just need to respond quickly to something. Apologies, guys. I just needed to quickly respond to something because it was driven by time. But please confirm that you can still hear me. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear you.
okay.
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
I can
Awesome.
hear you, sir.
Good, good, good. Thank you so much. So let's move on. I was speaking about posture, and I was saying that in an interview setting, if you are having a virtual interview, it's very important that an interviewer sees you clearly. Because one thing I noticed at like in my previous engagements is when you call a candidate on like when you get on Zoom or you get on a call and you speak to a candidate, they're in a very dark room, room is very scattered. I'm like, are you, I, are you normal? Because something is a virtual interview does not make it any less formal. You need to be in an environment that is quiet. If you're having a virtual interview, you need to be in an environment where I can see your face and you're seated. Some people, because it's a virtual interview, they will stand or they will be on the road and you're taking it. And are you okay? How do you expect to land a job? Because anytime when I hear this, I'm like, you are the weapon fashioned against your own success. If you want a job, you need to do things right. You don't just live your life casually and do things casually and expect your life to turn around for good. It doesn't work that way. So you need to ensure that your virtual setting is flawless. There's no noise. You're seated in a well-lit room. You're facing the window if you don't have a ring light so that they can see your face. Because it's a virtual interview does not mean you should tie a wrapper and sit down. If you need to wear a shirt, wear a shirt. All right? So it is very important that you get your virtual setting right. Ensure that your interviewer can see you clearly. You're in a well-reached room. There's no noise. Nobody's walking in the background. Nobody's talking to you during the interview. You're in the right states. And then finally, be mindful of non-verbal cues. So when we speak about non-verbal cues, we're talking about body language, right? You need to pay attention to body language. Sometimes when you're responding to a question and you're going off tangent, if you watch the interviewer, they always give you a non-verbal cue. It can be their facial expression. You need to pay attention to it so that you know how you're performing in an interview. A lot of time people tell me, if I ask you how is an interview going, oh, I don't know. Or I don't know. You should know how an interview went by virtue of the expressions that people give you, the non-verbal cues that are there, your responses and people's responses to your own responses. You can be able to assess if that interview was a successful one or not. So you need to pay attention to non-verbal cues, body languages, even in a virtual setting, what's people's facial expression? What if you're doing it? You need to just be very vigilant when it comes to nonverbal cues. From your end as well, you need to also pay attention to your nonverbal cues. Don't slouch, don't sit like you're in your bedroom, you know, some things around, like keeping, if you know that you have a strong face, smile a bit so that you don't put the other person off. All of these things are important to ensure that you succeed in an interview. And I hope this makes sense for you. In terms of posture, when we speak about posture, you see how we say, oh, sit upright. So for the lady who is sitting, as you can see her sitting, she's sitting in the right way, where, for ladies, if you're wearing a skirt, you sit with your legs closed, you sit upright, you're not slouching, you're not putting your hand in your jaw. All of these things can communicate a lack of interest in the job. Sit and posture right. Finally, the post-interview stage, the most under on underestimated stage of an interview. Now, there's something called the thank you notes. A lot of people forget to do this, but it can significantly change the game for you. Many candidates end at the interview stage. Taking it further can improve. I already said this. The thank you notes should include things like the highlight of the interview, answers to questions you couldn't answer at the interview, any requested materials, feedback on your performance, and a call to action. Now, when in an interview, sometimes they might ask you a question and you do not know the answer to the question. Maybe because you probably have not experienced it before. I mean, so the people have asked me this thing, like praise. Okay, if I'm in an interview and they ask me a question I do not know, how do I handle it? My go-to would be, first of all, take a stab at it with a disclaimer that you probably do not have all the right answers. So, for example, if they ask me a question I don't know, I'll be like, okay, so I do not have, I would say, while I may not have a direct answer to that question, here is how I'm thinking about it. What I'm doing with that response is I'm showing the interviewer that I am a critical thinker. So if they ask you a question, oh, tell me about a time when you've had a backlash with a colleague in the office, what did you do? I'll be like, so while I haven't been in that situation before, here is how I'm going to handle that situation. You take a stab at it, all right? With them knowing that you haven't done something like this before, you haven't answered it. So, for example, if it's a technical question, you apply for the role of a digital marketer and they ask you a question around, oh, how do you elevate SEO on LinkedIn, right? Let's say you've done, okay, I don't even know if that is correct. I'm just giving an example. So let's say you've done SEO, or okay, let me say, how would you increase our followership on LinkedIn? And that's what they're asking you as someone who's applying for the role of a social media manager. And then you tell them, oh, while I haven't done social media management on LinkedIn before, I have done it on Instagram, and I would like to think that these social media platforms have very similar expression, even though there can be some like significant nuances. However, how I'll think about LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is a professional platform, less like less versatile as maybe Instagram, for example. I would like to think that you begin to give them some of the things that you are thinking, show them that you can think on your feet, that you're a critical thinker. You might not have all the answers, but taking a stab at it communicates that you're a critical thinker. You're someone who is not perturbed when you're faced with a challenge you have not experienced before, that you're someone who is a problem solver. All right. In the thank you note side, you can go a bit further. Let's say the answers you gave were not as solid. You took a stab at it, the answers were not solid. You can now go back and do your research and come up with a comprehensive approach and put it in the thank you notes. Thank you so much for the interview. I appreciate your time and effort interviewing me. I enjoyed speaking with you. As per the question that you asked about this, here are a couple of things I've also been able to gather after our interview session. Now, imagine that you are the recruiter and someone did that to you. Wouldn't you think that that person is someone of value? Wouldn't you want to give that person a bit more attention that you would have ordinarily given to them? Because what? They've taken initiative, they've done research, they've gone above and beyond to show that they are people of value. I hope that makes sense. Sending a thank you note that highlights the so you can say things like, oh, the highlight of the interview for me was how the team was very friendly and were willing to give me time to, answer some of the questions, even though, I was out of schedule. You can just highlight two things that were the highlight of the interview for you. If there's any question that you did not answer effectively, you can add the answer to the question there. If you have if there's any document that they are asking you about on your CV that you did not have, you can attach it to the thank you note. As per the document you asked about during the interview, here is the certificate that I mentioned that I already have and whatnot. You can attach it to the thank you note. That thank you note can significantly improve your chances to landing that job. So reminding them of the highlight of your interview keeps you top of mind for the recruiter or interviewer, and you can politely ask if you can connect with them on LinkedIn. That's also a call to action that you can include there. Oh, I appreciate speaking to you. I would like to connect with you on LinkedIn. I hope you don't mind. And that's fine. They might not respond. You can go ahead and connect them on LinkedIn. If they see your LinkedIn request, they will be expecting it because you already communicated with them. Another thing to do in the post-interview stage is following up. Many times, I keep telling people that recruiters are human beings, right? They can forget, they can miss information, all of these things. You need to also follow up. So let's say you've done an interview and after 1 week you've not heard back from them, it's okay to send a follow-up note, a follow-up email. Oh, like, dear hiring manager, thank you so much for the time at the interview. I really appreciate speaking to you. It's been over a week since our last call. I'd like to follow up on the status of my application. Looking forward to receiving feedback from you. Thank you. Maybe they were not considering you before because of that follow-up email you sent. They might go and take a look at your application again, and maybe they might include it. All right. So these are some of the little tricks you can do to elevate your job search, can significantly elevate your job search experience, right? It can really open up more doors for you. It can really just change the game for maybe it's these things that you can do that might be the little tweaks you need to make to land that job opportunity. Finally, you can stay in touch with people in that company using LinkedIn and they can share updates with you on the application process if you need it to. So the final thing I have here in terms of key activity is continue to search for opportunities. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. Yes, I've done the interview. The interview went fantastic. You do not know until they've given you an offer. Keep on searching. No matter how good you think an interview went, they could decide to move another way. Do not think that that's the end of it. Improve your application documents. So let's say some HR people would give you feedback on your CV during an interview. Oh, this is what I saw, or this is what I thought about your CV. This is what I did there. All of those concerns they've raised as per what you have on your CV can help you improve your application document. You can take that feedback, go back to your CV, revamp it, and make it better so that the next HR will not give you the same comment that they've given you previously. Research similar opportunities and roles using research similar companies and roles that are so for example, if you're applying to Piggyvest and Piggyvest is looking for a customer service, look for other fintechs that are also looking for a customer service person and apply to them. Send them cold emails, find their application email and forward your CV with a word cover email alongside expressing your interest to join their organization. Even though they might not be recruiting, that might just be an opportunity for them to consider you. Finally, do not take rejection too personally. Accept it with dignity. See, rejection is just a step towards a yes. Do not see it as you're not good enough. Don't make it about you. Make it about them. All right. And then finally, for everyone who believes in something bigger, pray and commit your job hunting journey into the hands of your maker. Now let's go into some interview deal breakers. What are some deal breakers that can put off a recruiter and interviewer immediately? Now, do not do this at interviews, like giving compliments. Some people might see it as you're trying to bribe them, or some people might pick offense. Like I don't know if you guys remember the like very popular skit that went viral one time, and someone went to a job interview and told the and told the interviewer, "You smell nice," right? And it became a whole thing. So be very careful with compliments. They are risky. Tread carefully. One interview deal breaker is your phone ringing in an interview room. See, I can, if I'm an interviewer, I can walk you out of that room if your phone rings out. please stand up and leave the interview. That's the end of the interview, because it goes to show that you're not somebody that is thinking. Why would your phone be ringing? I would advise put your phone on silent or turn it off completely if you're going for an interview. Even if it's a virtual interview, some people forget and they leave their phone because just many times your phone is what you're using to hotspot your laptop if you're having a virtual interview. You can put your phone on airplane mode, or sorry, on do not disturb when you're having an interview. If you're using your phone for that interview, put your phone on do not disturb. That way, any call that's coming in would not come into your phone and interrupt your interview. But if you're using your laptop and you're hotspotting your phone, put your phone on silent, because someone can call you and then it rings out and then it can get distracting. Please pay attention to that. Dressing inappropriately, you need to wear the right clothing. So don't go to an interview wearing all the nose rings and the earrings and the leg rings and leg chain. You can put people off. Or using perfumes that are so strong, and then when you come into the room, everybody is closing their nose, right? Or using too much adornment and accessories. You're not going for a party, you're going for an interview. Keep accessories as light as possible. Another thing that's a deal breaker is poor hygiene or being tardy. Smelling funny. Some people, you ate fish at night, and then you didn't brush properly, or you forget to brush, or you come in sweating and there's the map of like Africa is drawn on your shirt. All of those things are interview deal breakers. Please avoid them. If you come late for an interview, and that's why I keep saying it's better to come early. If you come early, if you're a lady and maybe you came in through public transport because of how bad it is in Nigeria, you can walk into the restroom, you can comb your hair again. I mean, some small touches of makeup can just really, make you look fresh. If you have some like pocket perfumes, you can just apply it just to look and present professionally and neatly. Dishonesty and misrepresentation is also another deal breaker. We keep saying don't lie or say don't lie or say you think it's a joke. Interviewers can catch a lie very easily, or you trying to pose and say something that you haven't done. Misrepresentation. It's usually a turn off. That can be the end of your interview. Please do not do this. Avoid it as much as you can. In fact, completely, no, completely avoid it completely. Thank you. Arrogance and overconfidence can be another deal breaker. You don't want to come off as being cocky when you're in an interview, showing, oh, I know it all. Oh, don't, this one. It can put people off. Remember, you're dealing with human beings. Do not forget that. All of these things, people's biases play into some of these things. So ensure that you do not come off arrogant and overconfident or over cocky, and you can put an interviewer off because they feel like you're, do it with moderation. Showing up unprepared, appearing disinterested in the interview, looking around the room that they're speaking to you, and looking to the ceiling. What are you looking for there? Be present. Don't give any negative body language, slouching, low energy, low voice. All of those things can put an interviewer off. And then finally, bad mouthing your past employer can be a complete deal breaker for a lot of recruiters and interviewers. If they ask you, oh, like, why are you leaving, like where you're currently working, make it about yourself. Oh, I'm seeking better job opportunities, or I'm seeking a more challenging job opportunity that would enable me to X, Y, Z. Don't go and start saying, my company, they're not paying us well, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. All of those things can be a complete deal breaker for a lot of recruiters and interviewers. So pay attention to it. What are some general interview tips? I mean, we've covered most of these things in the various stages of an interview, but just to reiterate, be polite and cautious to everyone, including the receptionist when you go to a physical interview, or greet everyone when you come in there to show respect. Do not come to the interview premises with heavy luggage and bags or with valuable items to avoid theft. I know that you're going for a job interview, or maybe you sleep at a friend's place. Going to an interview with heavy luggage, it doesn't present you well, because you need to go into that interview room without those luggages. So if you keep it outside, you can expose yourself to people stealing your property. So don't go into interviews with those valuable items. Arrive on time and do a quick bathroom check. If you know that you flew back from the Awoyaya to Yaba or somewhere, go into the company's the bathroom. If it's a physical interview, clean up yourself, make the dust on your shirt, use the tissue, clean up, look presentable, wash your face if you can, clean it up, look very presentable. Dress appropriately, use mild perfumes and deodorants to make an impression of cleanliness and orderliness. If it's a physical interview, knock before entering the room, and do not sit down until you're invited, or at least the interviewer has sat down first. Greet the interviewer or interviewers with a smile and firm handshake. Already mentioned this. It's advised to switch off your phones, keep them in silent mode. Do not touch your phones during the interview. Show that you can listen. Show positive interest by nodding and staring directly at who is speaking. Ask or pick up names and use them. Now, this one is very important. A lot of times people do not do this. When people introduce themselves to you, or like a recruiter introduces themselves, oh, hi, my name is Praise. I'm the HR manager. Pick up their name and use it to speak to them. Don't come and saying, sir. Okay, all of these things boils down to your research. So if you have researched the organization, I know that this organization is a very friendly, low classy area. You can just use the name. Or you can just to be safe. You can say, I'm like Mr. Tolu, or you can just say, so when they introduce themselves and they say, oh, my name is Tolu, I'm the HR manager. You can say, hi Tolu. I lost my screen. I don't know what's happening now. I'm unable to share my screen. Solomon, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'll do it now. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I think you can now. I'll try.
Okay. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's back.
Yes, I can see.
Okay, good. So I keep saying, so guys, we're pressed for time. Show that you can listen, show positive interest by nodding and staring directly at who's speaking. Keep your answers concise and back them up with example. Like I was speaking about like using people's names. Using their names helps them, remember you a bit more. So when I was speaking to somebody for the first time, I say, "Oh, I'm using their name. Oh, like thank you so much, Tolu, for that question." Right? In an interview, you would automatically elevate the their like propensity to remember you more. So imagine they ask a question, or like tell us about yourself, and I say, oh, like, thank you so much, Mr. Tolu, for that question. And then you go on to answer the question. You're already using their name to talk to them. It creates a bit of familiarity. You're connecting with them by virtue of just even using their name. So it's very important that you pick up names and you use it. In terms of answering questions, keep your answers concise and back them up with examples or with documents if you have them. In answering behavioral questions, always leverage the STAR technique of answering interview questions. I keep repeating this again, and we're going to see how to use the STAR framework to answer interview questions in the coming slides. So the next thing we're going to look at are what are the very common interview questions and how do you answer them? Now, very common interview questions include, oh, tell us about yourself. The intention of this question from the perspective of the human resource or the recruiter or the interviewer is to sum up the candidate's elevator pitch. This question is about an elevator pitch that should be a discussion of the candidate's resume and general background in 2 to 3 minutes. A lot of people would now spend almost 10 minutes introducing themselves. That is a very big red flag. When they ask you in an interview, tell us about yourself, you need to just give them really punchy lines, summary of your career journey, why you're interested in the role, and how to answer this question. So there are two ways. You can start with your name. Oh, hi, my name is Praise in a sense. You go with your qualification. I have a background in engineering, accounting, or whatnot. And I have over 2 years experience working as a digital marketer across various industries. Now, you can speak to those experiences, maybe like one or two. You can say, oh, like currently I work at XYZ company where I basically what you're discussing are your achievements and accomplishments in that role. So a very good example, now I'm applying for the role of a digital marketer at PiggyVest now, for example. And I'm saying, oh, hi, my name is Praise in a sense. Sorry, I'm saying, so hi, my name is Praise in a sense. I have a background in digital communications from the University of Nigeria. and have over 2 to 3 years work experience as a digital marketer across various industries. Currently, I work as a digital marketer at Fair Money, where I lead the business digital transformation strategy, like when it comes to online communications, and that has led to significant boost in our overall community engagement. Prior to working at Fair Money, I worked at XYZ company where I did XYZ. Really excited about speaking to you about the role as of a digital marketer here at PiggyVest. Look forward to joining the company and expressing and helping drive the overall objective of PiggyVest to even greater heights. That's a very sweet, simple introduction to go. So your name, qualification, experiences, your name, qualifications, relevant experiences, career motivation, and aspirations. So you can maybe add a bit of your aspiration. Oh, I'm very passionate about like leveraging like digital media to reach, you know, people in underserved communities. That is your career aspiration or motivation. You can include it there to elevate your appeal, right? And then the next thing is, why have you applied for the role? I've applied to join PiggyVest because I believe in the company's vision to like empower Nigerians to be financially independent, for example. And what value do you bring to the organization? I look forward to joining PiggyVest to elevate the overall business objective and achieve, their digital strategy and a communication goal during my time. And that way, in 2 to 3 minutes, you have been able to communicate your value. You've told them your qualification, your experience, your career aspiration or motivation, why you've applied to join them, and what value you're going to be bringing to the organization. Do not include any irrelevant information in your introduction. It's not important. They'll ask you if they need to ask you that information. They'll ask you as you go forward. Another way to go about it is your name. Oh, my name is XYZ. What have you done or achieved? You can begin to speak about what you've done before or achieved, and then you can now speak about the problem you want to solve with your skill and a call to action. So how to go about it is, my name is Phrase. I've been in digital marketing for a little over 5 years, where I'm helping businesses to thrive in terms of their digital communication strategy. I hope to continue leveraging my skills in digital marketing to continue to elevate companies' overall brand appeal. I'm not a digital marketer. I'm just giving excuses. If I'm just giving examples rather. If it was my field, that you would have seen me giving you hot. But then you get the gist. You say the problem that you're solving with your skill, and then you say, "Oh, I'm looking forward to joining a forward-thinking organization like yours, where I'm able to leverage my skills to effectively do that and do X, Y, Z." So that call to action is also your value proposition to the company. The other question that's also a very common question is around your strengths and weaknesses. For the intention, they want to assess your knowledge and depth of your skills that you possess and how you translate it to value for the organization. In terms of your weakness, the intention is that they want to check that you're a human being and no one is perfect. So when you're answering questions around your strengths, how do you go about it? You need to highlight your key strengths that are relevant to the job. Now, relevant is very important. Don't go and highlight skills that do not help you succeed in that role. Highlight only relevant strengths that you have and give examples. Don't just say, "Oh, my strength is in teamwork." You need to give them an example of how you believe that that's a strength for you. You can say, "Oh, like I have a strength in digital marketing. I've been able to take XYZ company from this position to this position." You have given an example. The next thing to do is think about how that strength can translate to value for the company. So if you have said you have this strength and you have been able to use that strength to do XYZ, then how would that strength add value to the company now that you're applying for? Or I believe that with this strength, I'll be able to help like your company to do XYZ and achieve XYZ in no time. That's how to communicate your strength when they ask you about a strength question. In terms of weaknesses, how do you answer that question of weaknesses? Speak to the weaknesses that do not directly hinder your performance at the job. Now, this is very important. When, for example, if you're applying for the role of a customer service personnel, you cannot say that you have a weakness of time management because it's going to work against you. You need to go and find a weakness that does not relate to that job. Maybe you can say my weakness is, like, I don't know, just think of something that does not hinder your ability to do that job as a weakness, and then talk about that weakness. when you talk about that weakness or when you highlight that weakness, state what you are doing to improve on that weakness. Don't just say, oh, my weakness is communication. In fact, if you're applying for a customer service role, your weakness can never be communication. Maybe you can say teamwork, because customer service people don't work in teams like that. Usually is an individualistic role. You can say, oh, I struggle to work like when I'm being put in a team, I'm more of, like an individual person. But what I'm currently doing is I'm taking courses, or like I'm reading a book. You can state the book. I'm reading a book on how to effectively work better in teams. You need to communicate that weakness and then say what you're doing to improve that weakness. That is how to answer that question. In terms of behavioral questions, how do you go about answering behavioral questions? They typically come in this format. Oh, tell me about a time when you've done XYZ. Tell me about a time when you've done this. Or can you describe to us a situation where you have done XYZ? It's basically trying to assess your past experience or skills and use that to predict your ability to succeed in the future. They're assessing the candidate's competence in taking initiative and going above and beyond, checking your knowledge of the STAR framework as well. A lot of recruiters do this. So how do you use the STAR technique of answering behavioral questions? STAR stands for situation, task, action, results, or reflection. I'll tell you why it's two. Someone is marking on my screen. Augustine, please stop marking on my screen. So for situation, you need to set context. So you need to tell a story. So let's say they tell you, tell me about a time when you've had conflict with a team member. How did you handle that situation? You can start off with the situation and saying, oh, like a very good example of that was when I was working at XYZ company. I had a different idea on how to go about this project, and my colleague had a different idea, and there was a conflict in how we're going to present our idea to our manager. That is the context. You have told a story. The next thing is, what was your responsibility? What was your task? You can say, oh, I was responsible for communicating the overall, team discussions to the team leaders on how to move forward. But because of that conflict we had, we're not able to effectively do that. What did you now do? What did you specifically do? Can I be like, okay, so what I did was I had to speak with my colleague in person, where we were able to use data to back up some of the assumptions and ideas we have and ensure that we're not making an emotional decision on the ideas, but a fact-based decision. And we were able to find a common ground in that, to come up with a comprehensive idea to present to the management, right? You have now said what action that you took that turned the situation around. Now, in terms of the result, you now say, oh, like because of that conversation we have, we're able to effectively deliver a comprehensive presentation to the management within the stipulated timelines, and everyone was happy with our work. That was the result of it. Now, it can also go the other way where there was no result. Maybe it was a reflection. So at the end of it, if there was no result, or say maybe like you had a conversation with them and it led to the team not effectively delivering on time and it turned out bad, instead of saying the result, you can also speak about the reflection. What that means is that you're someone who has a growth mindset and you're willing to learn, right, from your mistakes. So it can be a result, it can be a reflection, depending on how the story flows. So just think about it like that. What was the action of your outcome, or what did you learn from that situation, as a way to culminate that expression? I hope this is clear to everyone. Other questions we tend to see is, why do you want to join our organization? Right? They want to gauge your interest. You need to have done your research about the organizational values. Speak like you're already part of the organization, and personalization is very key in answering this question. You need to speak like you already know what the problem the company is facing is and how you're positioning yourself to solve that problem. The question around your salary expectation, the organization is trying to understand if you fit into their overall budget and if they can afford you, right? How do you answer the question? Typically, you say you'd have done your research, and then you give them a range based on the research that you have done, and then always have a walkaway amount. There's an amount that you know that if they pay you below this, you cannot take it. Have a walkaway amount. So, in case the entire negotiation goes on, you continue to ensure that you are at an advantage. The best way to have a walkaway amount is think about what you're currently earning, you can do a 1.5x of that, or you can do a 2x of that. So that can help you just effectively analyze, how best to know. So based on that, you can even form a range. So the easiest way to do it for me is I look at what I'm currently earning, right? And I to exit, I double it and say, oh, this is my expectation for this role. And then I give a range within that expectation that is befitting for me, right? Because I know that I'm not going to take a job that is paying me less, except I know that I'm going to gain other things from that job. So it's very tricky. Just figure out what works for you and communicate it in that way. When you don't know the answer to a question, I already mentioned how to go about this, right? You can communicate your lack of knowledge. You can take a stab at it, and it's okay to ask for time to get back with an appropriate answer or response. Another question that typically comes up is, what personal development effort or steps have you made to prepare you for the role? You can talk about your like courses or certifications you have taken, and talk about how you're constantly improving your skill, and communicate your continuous interest in learning and development. These are the ways to communicate or answer those kind of questions. And I hope that with that, this has been a swell, interesting class for you, and you've learned a lot about how to go about scaling and answering interview questions. So I'm going to take a few questions and then take some few people to give us a simulation of an interview. So I'm going to do role play with you, and you're going to answer those questions that I have so far. So any questions? I'll just take a few questions. So we have 3 hands up now. So I will hear from Onu Godwin. Please keep your questions very short. I need to leave here by 11:15 or 11:30 maximum. So please keep your questions short, and I'll try to answer as quickly as I can. Okay, so let's hear from you, Godwin. Onu. Godwin, if it's not ready, let's have a DJ on Itsuk.
You don't drop him again.
Okay.
I say back
Good
up.
morning.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Good morning, sir.
Hi, let's wait for Onu Godwin. Godwin, please go ahead. What question?
All right, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes. So, sir, my question is about asking relevant questions when your interviewer asks if you have a question for them. So,
Okay.
what if you have done your research and you don't have any question concerning maybe anything that has to do with the organization, but there are other relevant career questions you want to ask your interviewers? Probably you've done personal research on them, maybe. So, or you have a question that is a career question that is bothering you, and then you think any one of them can answer it. Can you ask such questions?
Well, it's dicey. Now, it's an interview, it's not a counseling session.
Okay.
So you need to be very careful as to the kind of questions you ask. Now, there's no way you tell me that you do not know, after doing your research, you don't know questions to ask. For me, then you've not done a proper research, because questions can flow from the role. Oh, like, can you tell me a bit about this role, and what exactly are the expectations from the organization for this? I mean, you should already know because you have seen the job description, but there's a way you can couch it in a way and say, oh, you read from the job description that the company is trying to achieve XYZ. Or, like, can you tell me a bit about what they've been doing previously with regards to this specific thing that they're trying to change now? So, for example, they are saying in the job description, oh, that we're looking for somebody who can help us drive like revenue targets and XYZ, and then you can ask, oh, how exactly have the organization been doing like revenue tracking? You need to be you cannot tell me that you have not done your research, you have done research and there's no relevant, it's not possible. Then you have not done a proper research. You need to do proper research, because if you're intentional and you're interested in that role, you should have a lot of questions to ask. So if questions will not come from the job description, it will come from the role itself. It will come from, you can ask as basic as, how do you measure performance in this role? How do you measure performance in this role? How exact, or what are the other, beyond the salary expectation or beyond the salary that is paid for this role, what are other organizational benefits that I would get by virtue of being a staff of this organization? Those are relevant questions to ask. And I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir.
But then be
Thank you
careful,
very
don't
much, sir.
ask personal questions in place of relevant questions, please.
Okay, sir. All right. Thank you very
Okay, so
much.
let's have Lady Jung Itzuk.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, my question is about the salary, because I have been fortunate to attend an interview training or simulation like this one. So the compare there said something about telling them to pay you what's equivalent, what's their this thing, what they have on their payroll for that particular position you're applying. So I now applied to a company last month, and there was no room for like a statement or a question. It was the exact amount. They did not even request for a range. It was the exact amount you want to be paid. So in a situation like that, I would like to ask, what do you do?
Okay, so typically every organization has a budget. I'm hearing myself. Can you mute your mic? So typically every organization has a budget for a role, right? So if they already put in the job description what the job amount is, if you did not have that conversation in the interview, right, you don't have a right to challenge it when they eventually give you an offer. So they tell you, oh, for this role, we're looking to, pay XYZ amount. They've already stated, because many times organizations don't tell you the amount that they want to pay people for a particular role. They don't tell you, right? That is when the question of salary range is now relevant to ask an interview. But let's say that they've put in an amount, and then you go to the interview, you can ask them and say, "Oh, can you? I saw that this role, that there was this XYZ amount that was included in the role. Is it possible to, extend or stretch that amount a little bit?" You can ask that question in the interview and hear what the HR person would say. If they tell you, oh no, we cannot go beyond this role, you know that the role is not for you if the salary is not convenient for you, because they've already communicated how much they're willing to pay. But when they have not communicated, they'll typically ask, oh, like, what's your salary expectation for the role? Then you give them a range based on based on the research that you have done. All right. But overall, if they have already stated the amount, many times it's hard for organizations to stretch a bit, except maybe you have been an exceptional candidate and they really want to hire you. If they at the interview, you can say, "Oh, I see that you guys have put this amount of for this role. Is it possible to extend this or stretch this a bit? As you know, this amount is not as attractive given my experience and skill that I'm bringing to the organization." At that point, you can have the conversation with the HR person to say, "Oh no, we can't stretch it," and then you just know automatically that the role is not for you, because if you cannot take that amount that they've told you, then you should leave the role for them. But if they had not communicated, then that's where the conversation of salary then comes in, and I hope that makes sense. Okay, good. So let's have Harry ask his question next. Please keep your questions short so I can answer them as quickly as I can.
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I wanted to ask that how can we send that thank you note? Is it through the email or something?
Absolutely. So the email that you got the invitation from, you can send it as reply also. For example, if they have a multiple copy to that email, you can reply all and not just click on reply. Because if you click on reply, you're only going to reply the person who sent you that email. But if you reply all, including those who were copied to that email, will get your thank you note. So you can just put a subject and say, oh, like, thank you for the interview, and then you put a message, oh, like, dear interviewers, thank you so much for your time and for the interview session today. I completely enjoyed speaking to you. And then you include everything you want to include in the email, and then you close out the email and send it to them. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Up next is Augustine Anowolapo. Please keep your questions short.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My question is, for example, I'm a teacher and I want to transition into tech. Though I've been doing some tech class courses online. So I want to ask, for example, in the interview, and they're asking for my experiences. What, like, I don't kind of like, baby, can you tell them that you don't have an experience? And so that's my question, sir.
So I'm struggling to understand your question. Can you ask it again?
Okay, the question is that, for example, if you don't have any experience concerning the role, but you know how to go about it, if you tell them that you don't have experience, like how do you go about telling them the experience you have, maybe doing the course you're doing and all?
So typically, if you don't even have the experience, they will not even invite you for an interview because this should have already been tackled in the CV and cover letter part of it, because that's the only reason why they would invite you for an interview. So if they're inviting you for an interview, of course, they have seen that you have what it takes to, you know, to succeed in the role. Okay. So this question, I think, has been taken care of in the CV and cover letter session where we talked about, trying to be creative around certain things we want to do. So if we don't have experience, we need to go and find those experiences and include them on our CVs, all right? But now we're discussing interviews. Interviews, at this point, they're already inviting you because they think that you can do the job. So if you know that you have maybe lied on your CV, you need to go and start preparing to give responses because they will ask you those questions. So you need to find a way to communicate that you can do those things that you said you can do on your CV by giving examples of how you've done them before and showing, and showing proof of the fact that you can eventually do it. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We have me, Alfred. Please go on next.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My question is more of a just like a counseling question. I'm sorry for bothering you with the question, but my question is like this. See, sometimes some people are nervous in such a way that they cannot stand boldly and talk for themselves. So in this case, if you are invited for an interview and you have come to discover that it's a face-to-face interview, is it advisable that the person take, some people go on taking alcohols to clear their face before they go for such things. Some go on taking drugs. So is it advisable to go on such things?
No, it's not advisable, please. I already said something around this. I don't know when you joined the call anyways, but like I keep saying something around your mindset, right? You need to work on your mind. And I gave a couple of reasons or some tips. Now there's something called you know, there are a lot of techniques that really help people stay calm. So the first one I spoke about is the deep breathing technique, where you take in deep breaths to slow down your heartbeat. So you breathe in for 5 seconds, you hold it in for 5 seconds, and then you let it out. Do this multiple times for even as long as you can hold the breath. What that does for you is slows down your heartbeat and reduces the tension that you're feeling. All right. Some people practice self-affirmations. It helps them get more comfortable, it gets them more confident, they feel like they can do it, and it helps them. The other thing I also shared with you is think about the worst case scenario. Many times, what makes people nervous in an interview is that they are so afraid of the unknown, things that they do not know that might happen eventually. So if you think about the worst case scenario, oh, the worst things, I will not get this job and get fine with it. Trust me, all those nerves will come down. What really makes that nerves happen? The people don't, you're always afraid about failing. It's okay when you make mistakes. Just try to take away don't overthink it. If you overthink it, you begin to get nervous as you go forward. So it's very important that you keep work on your mind. Those drugs and all those things that you spoke about is not the best way to go because you're not going to take drugs forever. If it's a thing around your self-esteem, you need to go and take courses on self-esteem to boost your confidence because overall you will get to join that organization and you will do the job eventually. Will you continue to take drugs when you ask you to come and make presentations? No. What is important is working on your mind. So look for techniques that reduces your nervousness. I spoke about the deep breathing technique, self-affirmations, thinking about the worst case scenario. Some people even say, oh, picture the people that you are speaking to. If you picture them naked, it helps you get. I don't know how that works with them. I don't know how people do that, but I've heard it. People say, "Oh, like when I'm like in a crowd and I want to get more comfortable, I just picture the audience naked, and it just helps me feel relaxed." I don't know how that works for people, but figure out a way to make yourself get calm. You need to be very calm for you to effectively succeed in your interview, and I hope that really helps answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. That's answered my question.
All right. Thank you so much, Alfred. Let's have Adeyelu Olufumilayo.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for the lecture, sir. I want to ask about the likely question for the interview, like
Okay.
the question, like likely question that to be asked in the interview, like you tell me about yourself and tell me about a time when you found a better way to do something. Like
Mm-hmm.
you only give insight on someone that has an experience. Like for those that don't have a work experience, like a recent graduate, like for that tell me about a time when you found a better way to do something. Can you like maybe give an instance of what you've done in school or something?
Absolutely. See, it doesn't have to be work experience. Now, I keep saying this, it's a behavioral question for a reason. Behavioral questions don't test you on specific technical skills. What they're really testing is how do you behave in a work environment? That is the entire idea of behavioral questions. How are you as a person? How do you behave when you're with people? So tell me about a time when you found a better way to do something is basically just testing. Have you been able to take initiative before? Are you innovative in your thinking? That's what they're trying to test. So maybe it's the little school project you did in your university days. Oh, I found a better way to like make PowerPoint presentation in a faster and more efficient manner using Canva. Or you can just think of something that you've done before. The whole point of the behavioral question is not to test your technical capabilities, it's to test your human interaction, your behaviors in a workplace. They want to see how you would behave when you join them in the company. So many times, those behavioral questions stem from the company's values. So, for example, like a company like KPMG will test you on teamwork. Tell me about a time when you've worked in a team and had disagreements. You have done teamwork in church, you have done teamwork in school, in your class. Think of those situations, think of those stories, and use them in those interviews. I hope that helps.
Yes, sir. And please, sir, I want to say something, sir. For your screen screen sharing, like the screen that you shared, please, I wasn't able to screenshot the one of this deep breaker before the deep breaker, the this thing before the deep breaker, the screen sharing. I wasn't able to screenshot it. Can you please share that side before the deep breaker?
Okay, I'll share it. Thank you. So while I'm doing that, can the next
Thank
person
you,
ask
sir.
his question or her
Thank you
question?
very much.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, sir. I don't know if you
Good
can.
afternoon. Who's
Okay.
speaking? I can't
Thank
see your
you
name.
so much for like the lessons. They've been like really, really cool. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
here's my question. I recently graduated and I did guidance and counseling, and I'm looking forward to transition into HR, human resource,
Mm-hmm.
and probably eventually get a place for my PPA, which I'll be
Mm-hmm.
serving next year. I
Mm-hmm.
know to like get a chance in HR, you need to do like their professional courses or the CRM and all. But for now, I don't know if it's possible to get voluntary. Is it possible to have like a voluntary place where you can like just join them
Mm-hmm.
for HR positions?
Absolutely.
Helping
That's
them.
the that's usually the best way to go about it, right? I keep telling people if you don't have experience, you need to find a way to build experience. So there are a lot of organizations, volunteer organizations that you can reach out to, that you can just reach out to and start volunteer to be a HR intern with them. I know, like, I told you I lead human resource operations at Tells Impact Consulting. I know a while back we opened up our internship program and there was a role for a HR intern, and I currently have a HR intern that is working with me currently at the organization. He doesn't have any CIPM, he doesn't have any of those certifications, still in school even.
Okay.
Right? So there are a lot of organizations, NGOs, non-profit, volunteer organizations. There are opportunities in volunteering that you can find online. There are a lot of online volunteering platforms as well. There's one, I can't remember one now. I think if I find that video, I'll send it to Solomon and ask him to forward it to the class. It's a platform where people go and look for online volunteering opportunities. And then you can just volunteer as a HR intern for a couple of months and put it on your CV. Before you know it, you're building experience little by little, one drop of water fills the ocean, or how do they even say it again? So that way you're building the experience, and it's going to really help you moving forward.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Please, I'll really appreciate if you remember to send the video to us.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Who's the next person? Tochukwu David, you're next.
Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So thank you for the teaching, sir. Okay, sir, how do you answer? Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me, sir? Okay, so how do you answer a question
second.
like when they ask you how much would you like us to pay you? Maybe if you're in an interview ground, they ask you how much you want us to pay you in terms of salary. So how do you answer such question?
Okay, I think I already made mention of that. Maybe you missed it. So typically, you need to have done. So, for example, if you're applying for a role, you should know what the industry is saying about that particular role in terms of pay. What is typical for that particular role? So the best way to go about it is to give a range. So first of all, you need to have done your research to understand what is the typical industry standard for that particular role. Then you give them a range. So let's say what you want, your expectation for that role is maybe you want to earn 500,000 naira, right? I usually tell people 500,000 naira should be the lower band of your range. So you can just say, oh, if they ask you, oh, and you also need to know if you're worth that value. Do not go and call unrealistic amount. Someone's mic is unmuted and is distracting the class. You need to call a realistic amount that works for the company, or that matches your skill set. If you know that you don't have the experience to earn 500K, or you do not have the capacity to add value, that is deserving of paying 500K. If you ask for 500K, they will look at you like you're playing. So you need to also be realistic. So let's say your expectation is to get paid about 350,000 naira for the role. You can start off by saying, oh, I'm looking forward to earning somewhere within 350 to around 500 for the role. All right? You have given them a range. The lower band of that range is your actual expectation. Okay? You know that if they pay you anything less than 350,000, you're not going to be satisfied with that role. Let that be the lower band of your range, and then extend it further in case the company has the budget to pay you more. So you don't shoot yourself in the leg. Don't give them one specific amount, because if you just say, oh, I'm looking to earn 350,000 for this role, if the company had budgeted to pay that person 450K, they're not going to say, yeah, he doesn't know, let's just pay him 450K. No, it's that 350K that you call that they will pay you. So best bets, if your expectation is 350, let it be the lower range of your range, say 350 to 500. So in case there's even more, they can pay you what the company is looking for, has budgeted for that role. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to take one interview simulation. Can we have Jonathan Mete and Onone Uno? I'm just going to keep you on standby. I really need to have two simulations, but I'm just looking at time. We have 20 minutes. So let's say 10 minutes per person. 10 minutes per person. So Jonathan, if you can hear me, please unmute your mic. If you can turn on your video, that would be great.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, based on my connection, my network, if I turn the video, I think that the connection may not be stable.
Okay, that's good. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a persona. So your persona.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
what's your
please, I
background?
had a question.
I'm
My
not calling you
background,
up for a question. I'm calling you up for the interview simulation.
yeah, because
But
I
you have
had
a
a
question.
question. Yes.
Okay, what's your question?
Can I proceed?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, one day I got an opportunity to have an interview and they asked me what if I was selected for another position apart the one I applied for. So how should we react to such question?
If you should be considered for another role, another one you applied for.
Yes, based on my resume, what should I have
So
responded?
ideally, if the HR person is recommending you for another role, it's one of two
Yeah.
things. Is that maybe you do not have the requisite experience for that particular role that you're applying for? It could also be
Yeah.
that maybe they think that you're more experienced for that role that you're applying for, and they could give you a better opportunity. It could just be a number of one reasons. So I think the best way to respond is you would like to know the specifics of that particular role they want to recommend you for, and you want to check if it aligns with your own career expectation and aspirations. You're not going to just jump at it and be like, what is going to communicate to them that you're just being desperate for the job? I think the better way to approach it is, okay, you can thank them, I thank you so much for considering me for another role. However, you can ask them, however, you would like to know the reason why, you are being recommended for that role. So that gives you context. You can ask them very politely, I really like to know, like, why exactly you're recommending me for that other role. Is it because, you're more experienced, or is it because you feel like they feel like you'll be more fitting for you? And if they give you that reason, then it now gives you more context to ask and say, oh, okay, you appreciate the referral, but you would want to also see the specifics of that job description before you make a final decision, because ultimately it's your decision. And if they're recommending you for it has to also align with your own career goals and aspiration. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you so much. Well noted.
Awesome. So I was actually calling you up for a reason. I wanted you to participate in the interview simulation I'd like to do.
Yes.
So what's your background in?
My academic background?
Your career background. What do you do, or like what do you want to do ultimately?
Okay. Yeah. About my background, what I can say that I completed my studies in pharmacy, and I've been working in organizations that are working to promote mental health. I've been working in organizations that are advocating for climate change, and currently I'm the country representative for MI Foundation, which is an organization that is advocating for economic, environmental, and social sustainability in Africa.
Okay.
So, and I've been working in research in treatment of mental troubles. Yeah.
Okay. So, like, if you're recruiting for roles, what roles are you looking to land, for example?
What role?
Yeah.
For example,
Are you looking?
Please.
Like, what role are you
Can
looking
you?
to land? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The positions that I'm looking to run For example, I'd like to be, for example, a clinical pharmacist or community pharmacist,
Okay, that's cool.
something like that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So I need you to take a persona of someone who's applying for the role of a clinical psychologist. It's going to be really difficult
Yeah.
to do a simulation with you because it's very niche. So I'm just going to maybe pass on to the next candidates. Apologies for that.
No matter.
Yeah, it's going to take. I need them to experience something that is very relatable. Okay, Deborah, you're raising your hand. Is there a reason why you're raising your hand?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to bring it down. No, sorry.
Edith Young, you're raising your hand. Okay, cool. Can I have any volunteer who's willing to take on the simulation? I have less than 10 minutes to be here, guys, so we need to do this very quickly. Edith Young, Itzuk. Okay, cool. So what's your background, Edith Young? Okay, now our hands are down. Any takers? Do you have any volunteers?
Can I try?
All right. Only familiar. Awesome. So, like, what's your background, for me?
Okay. You mean work background? Actually, I
Yeah,
recently
work.
Okay. Can I
What role
talk?
are you looking to?
Me? I
Someone
studied.
was speaking before. Sorry.
Okay,
Who was the
sorry.
person that said can she try?
Yeah, it's me, Deborah.
Okay, Deborah. Cool. So, like, what role are you looking to land?
Human resource.
Okay, HR. Okay, good. That's very good. So I want you guys to pay attention to this simulation. So, Deborah, you're applying for the role of a human resource analyst at PiggyVest. I'm using the company that everyone is familiar with so that it helps them understand it. So I'm going to ask you some of the interview questions and I expect you to respond to them very quickly. So we're switching now.
Okay.
Hi, Deborah. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Praise. I'm the Human Resource Manager here at PiggyVest. And together with my colleague, George, we're going to be interviewing you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great. Thank you so much, Mr. Perez.
Awesome. Good. Okay, so just to get us started, can you tell me a bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Fatokumbo Deborah. I recently graduated from the University of Benin, studied guidance and counseling, and I'm looking forward to transition into human resource, which is why I opt for this role to gain more experience.
Okay, that's cool. So specifically, why have you applied to join us here at PiggyVest?
I applied to join you here at PiggyVest because I know that with you I can gain valuable experience that will not just be for the meantime, but will last me for a lifetime.
Okay, cool. So please tell me about a time when you have managed multiple conflicts of like within a team. So you are in a team and there is conflict between team members that doesn't directly involve you. How did you manage the situation as someone who is looking to get into the human resource field?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Pres, for that question. As much as I can relate to it, will be while I was still an undergraduate, we do a lot of teamwork assignments, and we really have to have like a volunteer, and everyone wants to step back because of the responsibilities and all. And then when someone eventually comes up, everyone still wants to give their idea, and the leader have to create like a decorum to meet everybody's interest. So there is this particular assignment that we did on clinical psychology, which is like a part of my course, and I had to volunteer to be the leader, and there were like clash of conflicts of what it is they want to be the front page of the assignment and all. And I kind of just listened to everybody and point out on how we need to work together as a team and agree to one theme to fulfill the particular goal. And it went really well, really well. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, can you tell me a bit about one weakness that you think that you have, as someone who is looking to get into the HR space? Can you tell me a bit about a weakness that you have? And
I'll okay.
No, please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I would say one weakness that I have is being consistent with a particular habit. That is one weakness I have, and I would say that I'm actually working on it, and I've really improved in terms of taking courses and reaching out to like my mentors, other people on how I can do well in a matter of consistency. And it's really been working for me. I can say I've improved to the maximum level. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much, Deborah. And then my final question to you would be, what are the personal development steps that you've taken as someone who's interested in the human resource field to improve your skills and build experience?
Thank you so much, Mr. Press, for that question. Some of the personal development moves that I've taken on my own part is going ahead to take human resource courses on Coursera and Udemy. I have like 2 certificates already, and I'm in progress with the other ones. And I also took personal courses on soft skills and technical skills, because I know working as an HR requires you to have soft skills such as communication skills and people management. So I took the course with Nobel, which is currently in progress.
Very
Thank
good, very good. Thank you so much for that. Do you have any questions for us, Deborah, before we leave?
you. Yes, I do.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, could you please shed more light on I really don't know how to structure this.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much, Deborah, for that attempt. So just before we leave, I would like to get some feedback from the class. I have a hard stop by 12:30, unfortunately. So very quickly, can we get feedback from the class on how Deborah has performed during this interview? So can we hear from Amarachi? Okay, Christian Onyinyechi, you're raising your hands. Thank you. Please unmute your mic and let's hear from you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the opportunity. I think that she did well, but there's one thing I noticed about the way she was talking. She made use of this word, and it was so obvious that you notice that she's I don't know, picking her words one after the other, something like that. And what else? Another thing I noticed, there's a question you asked her. I think she was answering something contrary to it. She was kind of not really calm. Like, I don't know. But that was one of the things I noticed. But aside that, she did very well, especially the second to the last question. She did very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your feedback, Onyinyechi. Because of time, I might not take more. So I think, overall, I think you did very well. So one thing I was going to mention was, you know how I gave you a nod as to why you're now interested in joining, PGFS. So when you're introducing yourself, you've mentioned your experience, you've mentioned your skills and what you want to do. You need to also make it a thing about why you're there. So you don't need the HR person to nudge you to say, "Oh, so why have you applied to join us?" You need to include it in your introduction so that it makes a complete, wholesome story as to how all of the things that you have done is now leading you to want to join them here at PGVest, all right? So that is something that should be included in your introduction even before they ask you, that question. So I'm going to forgive a lot of things because it was a very impromptu interview. She probably has not done all the research and all the homework and the pre-interview stage and all of that. Well, very well done, Deborah, for taking a stab at it. Continue to refine your answers. So when you ask a question, I think the question you struggled with a bit was around like when I asked you, so with like using the STAR technique of answering interview questions. Yes, I saw you making a significant effort to leverage the framework, and it was good. But however, your story needs to be concise. It doesn't have to sound repetitive, right? It was good that you were leveraging the STAR technique to answer all the questions, but always keep it concise and ensure that you're saying specifically what you did, to really help the situation, what your original responsibility. Okay, I know you mentioned that, saying that, but like what I just want to say about that is keep it concise, keep it brief, but overall continue to have the framework in your head when you're answering a behavioral question. What else? You sounded really calm. It sounded like you knew what you wanted to do, and thank God it was something that you're interested in. So continuously, seek ways to improve your overall answer and response to interview questions. Okay. But very
Thank you.
well done. I wish I had more time. I would have taken maybe a few more people, but I'm really pressed for time. I have a hard stop by 12:30. Thank you so much for being an amazing audience. It was really interesting having this conversation and us like learning about interviews. Yeah, so this is my last
Thank
and
you,
final
Mr.
class
Fred.
with you. Also,
Thank you.
look forward to your continuous success and have a lovely, lovely, lovely rest of your week.
Good.
Like,
Well
can you,
done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
can you help us share your LinkedIn or where to connect with you? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Praise. Thank you. It's been an interesting and interactive section.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I can see from Amalaki. Wow.
Thank you, Praise, for your
Today that was right.
for your other things that we learned today. Thank you very much.
Deborah, kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, please, sir, we'll get in the slides too.
Okay, please. If everyone here has the attendance link, and if we have all filled out the form.
Okay. Thank you, Jesus. Oh.
No attendance list, yes.
Okay,
Please,
I'm going to post the attendance link again. So please ensure you fill it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Attendance on the group chat. Okay. Oh. Okay.
Please, when filling in the attendance list, which company name are we going to choose? Is it Net Factory or Promas?
You will choose the company you came from, like the one you're working on. How did you get the advert? How did you come on the meeting?
It's
from who
Matrix
get
now
it
where
from.
I think that's where what they ask us to be taking every session.
Who said so?
During I think that was instruction.
Given by who?
Given by the what's her name? But
Okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, sir. Let me get this right. Let me get this right. Is it Net Factory or Promas? Which one are we going to choose?
That's why I'm asking. If you're coming through, if you're on the Promatrix group chat,
that's what you're working on.
Promatrix. If it's Net Factory group chat you're on, it's Net Factory.
Okay, now I understand. But next Friday, they postponed their own session to next week Friday, I think 26. They said that no class today. So
No,
that's
it's
why
the
I
same
probably
thing.
joined this one.
It's the same
That's why I
thing.
probably
It's the
joined
same.
you guys. Oh, okay, it's the same thing. Okay, thank
you. Yes. You have some people on the call that are from Nets Factory. Why we have some people on the call that are also from Pro Matrix.
Okay, because since we started, we've been taking that Pro Matrix. I don't know if there's any changes.
Fine. If that's where you are, it's fine.
So, which means it's a different companies now.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Okay, so if we are done filling the attendance, we can exit and leave the meeting.
I wanted to know the slides that are being sent by the instructors. How do we get them?
Yeah, you mean the recordings?
Yeah, the recordings and the slides. They said they were going to send this.
For today.
So how do we
Okay,
get
so the recording will be available this evening. Once it's ready, we are going to put it on the group chat. Okay. So for people that are from
but I have not sent the yesterday recording. I have not sent it.
I don't know.
There was no class yesterday.
Sir, attend please. Not been able to
Attendance, okay.
I don't know.
I'm having issues on this the aspect of companies.
Check the group chat. Attendance is there.
Okay.
Yes, I'm still asking, please. I don't know what group chat I am on, but I know the admin is always in Skills for Matrix. And since we started classes, no slide or recording have been sent.
So
Have you gotten the attendance? I've posted the attendance now. Please check. Have you seen it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I can see Alabi
Hello,
Kazim Olua. He also posted it. Thank you.
Hello,
so
sir.
the attendance link. Yeah, I can hear you. Speak up.
The tab for the two companies in the form is not opening for my phone. I don't know.
Sorry, come again. I didn't hear you.
There is a tab for the two companies. When you tap, it will go in. It's not opening in the form for me. I don't know.
Please check your network. I don't know.
Like companies you are learning on that choose and it's not opening.
Okay. No, we've closed the poll. Just fill the attendance. We've closed the poll. The poll has ended.
But I'm submitting and it's okay. I've filled. Okay. I've filled before. Sorry.
All right, fine.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so like I said, if you have participated in the poll, please don't fill the attendance. And once you have filled the attendance, you can leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can leave the meeting now, sir.
That's the tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
tomorrow.
you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Goodbye, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.